Sup guys, I got a lot more comments than I originally anticipated, so I'm going to go over them once now. First, I'll go through the new comments on the Vanguard tier list, and then the first response video, and then the carrier tier list, and finally the seemingly most controversial Battleship tier list. Okay, this is an off-topic question about the Shimanto gun. Yes, the ghost gun you get scales off the anti-air stat, but the cooldown of the gun is very long, so it has both a positive and negative effect on your anti-air if you use it on a ship with low AA. Next up is Yudachi Retro. She's still good, but very expensive and too time consuming to obtain to justify for a lower tier. Everything Yudachi can do is covered by the DDGs, Harbin, Kawakaze, and Hatsuzuki. Also Jinsu meta if you need a tank/torpedo buffer. Not all of them combined, but they each outclass her severely in their own areas. The last comment on this video says, he's not sure why Mogador's DPS is lacking. Let's see what I said. Next up is Mogador, who has exceeded my expectations upon discovering her synergy with Unzen and realizing the value of Alsace. Despite still not being the highest solo damage dealer in any category, her damage is top tier against light armor, while having relatively decent survivability, particularly in tough fights due to her invincibility. Okay, so I said that she has top tier light DPS. To be specific, it's top 3 but a little bit under Hindenburg and Taiyuan, although not by much. It's simply the truth, so I don't really know what you want me to say about it, but I didn't say it's lacking. I said Aldridge's damage is lacking. And it also seems like you're using Rudder plus Beaver badge on her, which is what fixed her lack of damage. So let's take a look. Her skill converts 15% of evasion stat. Let's see how much evasion a plus 13 Rudder and Beaver badge give. $49 from the Rudder, 44 from the Beaver badge. 15% of 93 is about 14 firepower. This random book here gives 20 firepower, which I guess is not good enough for some reason. What about this drone over here, 25 firepower? Or the Battle Tracto, which gives firepower and also evasion. Maybe give these a try instead. Okay, moving on to the next video. First is a follow-up comment on Nubian. I didn't mention where I would tier her because she wouldn't make the cut. Then there is a question about Royal Navy. These are my favorite Royal Navy ships, hope that helps. And then there's another idiot looking for Napoli. Just Google Maps, dude, it's 2024. Here. As for Tashkent, I actually uncapped her to level 125 and tested her already. Simply put, she's just not as good as Kawakaze, and all 3 DDGs outperform her in her single niche, but she's not bad. I can say she's stronger damage-wise than Z47 though, for whatever that's worth. Next question is, if I had to do this tier list all the way down, where would I put Portland? I'm just going to sidestep this and say I'd tell all new players to raise her if I was giving them advice. There are like 100 ships better than her now, so I can't be bothered. Okay, this player is trying to make an Ironblood fleet, good luck. The next comment says that Taiho could be, in some scenarios, as good or even better than Haku. This is not true. Just do the calculations for Haku and Taiho's damage properly, or better yet, use them in battle and you'll see. I was probably one of the earliest people to show Taiho the day her augment came out, and called her a decent replacement for Haku, but that was before Haku's Fate Sim. Taiho is decent and Haku just got dethroned in her role, but let's not take it too far. Next, Jimboy asks if Drake is really that bad. Not a plant, by the way. No, she's not that bad. Let's say she was an SSR ship you could pick up from the core data shop for like 1500 core data. I would then shill her endlessly. Next up, somebody asked about historical equipment. I don't know anything about that, so you're going to have to find someone more qualified. Next is Aurora buff really better than Kuibyshev? Well, if your Aurora is buffing strong ships, then yes. Check out this video from a while back to see some realistic numbers you can expect from Aurora's buff. Next comment says a damage tier list would be useful, but unfortunately that changes against every single armor type, and you also have fights with different armor types mixed together, so it's impossible. Next is a question about the rest symbol. I think if you have your subscriptions public and you're subscribed, it shows that symbol. Okay, next comment, it seems like we have a lost person. I don't even know where to begin. First, this point that the English community tier list and Bilibili agree with you. They don't even agree with each other on many things. Each of their tier lists have different criteria, so that doesn't make you any more correct. You can't just take the average of a bunch of tier lists and say, yeah, this is the real ranking, then put in fan art count tier list, breast size tier list, and then the English community tier list. Next, not putting her in at least B tier. Like, I can accept that people will misunderstand my choices if they skip over the explanations, but you didn't even bother to look at the tier list before writing this comment. What do you think this ship right here is? Just take your meds, bro. And then apparently people have been calling me a no-name. I honestly don't think I've noticed this insult. And really, it doesn't really matter what they say. Because of these demons, man. These demons in my head say worse things than anyone else ever could. Okay, on to the next video. So first, someone wants to raise Arc Royal to A. Let's see their reasoning. Arc Royal's damage is better than Enterprise's and Shangri-La's when her skill doesn't proc. That would only be true against heavy armor, and even then, I'm a little bit skeptical because it seems like you're talking about no proc Arc versus Enterprise with Lucky E. When it does proc, her damage is on par with Shinano and other rainbows. Well, that when it does proc is doing quite a lot of heavy lifting here. Because are we talking about 1 proc or 3? There's a huge difference. There's also a huge difference between Shinano's personal damage and other UR carriers. So it seems like all these assertions are just purely based on vibes. Plus she has a slow and buffs with the Vanguard and is an excellent boss killer. Yes, all of these are true, which is why I put her on the tier list in the first place, and show her more than most gold carriers in the game. Okay, Arc Royal's damage is probably being slightly overestimated here. While it is good against heavy armor, it's not actually better than Enterprise and Shangri-La on average otherwise. Just think about it. If she was stronger than them even when her skill doesn't proc, then you would see Arc Royal being used for her damage only, even disregarding the slow, before we had more than 2 UR carriers, but this was not the case. I was actually playing the game and pushing the limits of the ships to one-shot metas at the time, so trust me, I know. The main reason she's in B tier is because I cannot in good faith bring myself to put her in the same tier as AVP, who has a guaranteed root. A 60% slow, while good, is clearly a downgrade over a root. AVP also wins damage-wise against light and medium armor. Once again, I don't want anyone to get the idea that I think Arc Royal is bad. This is just one of the reasons I didn't include more ships, by the way. When the tier name isn't S or tier EX, people just start thinking it means the ship is unusable or something. So going any further is pretty much pointless. Okay, next, where is Perseus? I didn't include her because Unicorn is obtainable from the beginning of the game, easier to max out because she takes purple Bolins, is the best healer in the game, and you're griefing your fleet by running the two of them together because their roles overlap too much. All the other healers function a bit differently in their healing compared to Unicorn, usually larger but more focused heals, and provide more damage, which is why they can be used in conjunction with Unicorn. Perseus is really just a ship you get for fleet tech, and once you max her out, you go back to using Unicorn like a normal person. No different from Hiyo and Junyo in that regard. I included her in the previous versions just to diss her, but I think I've done enough of that, which is why I left her off completely. Okay, some more Perseus comments. Alright, there's a comment that says Claudia's nuts. That's what I heard, but I don't really know. As for Indomitable, she was heavily outdamaged by Albion, but it's true that her fighter slots are much stronger, so she has the potential to be quite good with LA9s. I would not use her in campaign though, because I don't think her barrages are very good there. It's one of those ships where their design is not my favorite, so I won't go out of my way to show them. I'll probably do some calcs and then give her a spin when I get a second LA9 though. Where did you get your PhD in this stuff? I gave it to myself. Next, Theseus should easily be in B tier. Maybe you should have left out the easily. Her damage against heavy is about tied with Taiho if Theseus hits a third of her barrage, which is a realistic assumption, considering, well, here's its pattern. What puts Taiho ahead though is going to be her buff for other carriers, and the ability to synergize well with many IJN ships like Shinano, Amagi, Nagato, and so on. Shangri-La is not cuter than Enterprise just because she wears glasses. Go to any college class and look around. Wearing glasses is the norm. Not wearing glasses should be a character trait instead. Hornet 2 I had hoped would be a more consistent version of Enterprise for Yorktown 2 compositions, but she doesn't have enough reload unfortunately, and Shangri-La is pretty much better in every way now. Would Chkalov do more damage than Amagi in a Soyuz fleet? Honestly, I'm not sure, but my gut instinct says no. Saratoga should be an A instead of B because she's more similar to the ships in A. I feel like she's the most similar to Soryu meta though, and then Taiho after that. The ship she's the most similar to in A is probably Chkalov, having a heavy dive bomber emphasis. Enterprise and Shangri-La are used in light and medium armor boss fleets for their synergy with Yorktown 2. AVP has an extremely valuable route, and the other two are healers, so I don't quite see how Saratoga is more similar to them. If possible, elaborate in a further comment. You don't play manual but Ranger is fine? Okay, picture this. You are a new player. Commander level about 90 or so. You have no level 125 ships and most of your equipment is plus 10 purple. Every single day for 3 months, you run Ranger against the ongoing meta boss. One day, you look at the result screen and you just see Ranger doing 1 million damage and the boss dead from full HP. There is no effort required in doing that, and no other ship is capable of a miracle like that. Also, Percy is S tier in heal stack fleets. I actually prefer to just finish the node instead of timing out nowadays. What the hell is going on here? Okay, I already responded to this, I think, in the other video. Another one about Indomitable. Okay, moving on to the Battleship tier list comments. First is How. I actually thought long and hard about whether I should put How or Brynhilde in B or Q tier, and I ended up forgetting to, so yeah, I'll toss her in Q tier. She's still a solid ship, but due to her buff being 15-second intervals, it's not super impactful. Brynhilde's kit I do like more than How, but I find her to be too much of a light armor specialist, and there are other ships that do as well or better against light armor than her, while doing much better against medium and heavy. Next is a comment about Bismarck's Way. First, in terms of jamming, Alsace actually does not suffer from it because she can hold 2 salvos unlike all other battleships, so even when battleships start getting jammed up, her cooldown never gets pushed back. Also, jamming definitely is a real issue, but as a result, we're now in the age of hybrid fleets, as rainbow carriers have slowly crept up in number. It's true that Bismarck's Way's reload was just enough for triple battleship fleets in meta fights, but I think it will be difficult to find places where triple battleship fleets will be optimal over Kearsarge Yorktown and Soyuz Nakhimov based compositions. Regarding her being the best ship to receive buffs, this was true in medium armor fights before Soyuz, but I believe it's outdated now as we haven't had a meta boss fight since the addition of Soyuz and Alsace. Buffing Alsace or Soyuz should be equally as effective, if not more. Going through the list, we had Wichita, before that Rodney, and then Kirov and Jinsu, none of which were medium armor. I think Jinsu was even before Soyuz. Next comment says New Jersey is not below FDG and UVH. I feel like I already explained this, but if we pretend the ships in front of these 3 never existed, then yeah, I would agree New Jersey would be at the front. The reality of the situation is there are 6 ships that do New Jersey's exact job better than her, while FDG is tied for the second best campaign mobber, and UVH has a home in Chapter 14 boss fleets. If we go back to the 2022 tier list, you can see that I put New Jersey first, then FDG, then UVH. This guy got Eskimo. Next comment claims that Duke of York and Nagato are over-tiered. Okay, let's say you're lacking in UR battleships, and that's the reason you're dipping down to the lowly SSR battleships to find something to use for a single enemy boss fight. I'll assume the 2 URs are Alsace, the most recent event ship, and New Jersey, the only permanently available real UR battleship. For that third slot, what ship do you think would contribute significantly more than Duke of York? I look forward to your answer. As for Nagato, it's true that there are many great ships that are more worth using than her, even with 2 IJN carriers. But let's see who they are. Alsace, Soyuz, Bismarck Zwei, Musashi, Haku, and Implacable. Notice anything? And then for Marco Polo, let's just listen to what I said one more time. Next, both Marco Polo and Prince Rupee are strong flagship choices for campaign. They can steamroll fights harder than A tiers that function the same role, but there's no reason to roll the dice on their chance-based barrages when you have plenty of choices with guaranteed barrages. Next up is a comment about Lee Min-so. I haven't really used her, but just looking at her skills, I don't know if one Vishya ship would be enough, since her barrage would not be guaranteed. I'm a bit skeptical, but if I get the chance, I'll give her a spin. How would you rate Royal Oak? She's usable, but quite a lot worse than Seydlitz, mostly because modern, strong Royal Navy main fleet ships like Vanguard, Implacable, and Albion, and so on, are not ships that you particularly benefit from using together, unlike Ironblood ships such as Zwei and UVH with Seydlitz. We need justice for the Royal Navy. Ki and Suruga I deliberately left off, because I don't think they are better than the Big 7 retrofits. Next is Belarusia. Her barrage usually only hits 2 or 3 times on an enemy, which makes its damage a bit lackluster. The slow is not particularly useful in mobbing, and there's also a chance that she just doesn't proc the barrage. Personally, I find her to be a worse monarch, and likely no better than the Big 7 retrofits, but I know there are people who would disagree with me on this, and that's fine. As for Indiana, she doesn't have much RNG and the numbers on her barrages are pretty strong. I do have to test her to make sure, but B tier is possible. Okay, this is a bit of a long comment, so I'll just summarize each point and give my response. Point 1, Big 7, Monarch and Bismarck making it on seems copium. That's fine because they're pretty much gatekeepers. For example, as mentioned earlier, Ki and Suruga are not much better than them, so I left them off. Monarch and Bismarck I feel like I have placed sufficiently low enough. Bismarck in particular is worse in a lot of cases than ships that I did not include, but again, I put her on there because she enables completely different styles of fleets that can still perform quite well. Point 2, as for Brunhilde, I would personally rather run Bismarck because of the reload buff as well as Vanguard buffs. The reload buff is a lot more impactful than 10% accuracy. Point 3, Lee Min-so I've already addressed. I think her being decent is actually just a testament to Richelieu's buff. If there's evidence of her performing at a high enough level in a fleet without Richelieu, then I would consider it more, but this is just more points in favor of Richelieu. How I've already covered. Her reload buff is weaker than Hood's, and the accuracy buff just does not line up. Additionally, I think we need more accuracy buffs on ships that are specifically strong against medium and heavy armor, since Aurora takes care of light armor enemies most of the time. Point 5 is their experience with collab ships. I cannot really verify, but I have heard similar sentiments from other players. Next is a comment about Owari having the best damage of all SSR battleships. I think she has some competition from Daisen, and I would just add the caveat that her damage is probably the best only for light armor and single target, as there are ships with huge AoE barrages that can hit more enemies than her, and barrages that are skewed toward medium and heavy armor, which hers isn't. Next up is a comment about the second. Yeah, maybe, but I don't think I'm ever going to test her, quite frankly. More comments about Indiana. Yeah, she could definitely be better than the Big 7 retrofits. Okay, next question is about the best heavy battleship setup. It's most likely Musashi, Alsace, and Vanguard, but it's really bad compared to carriers, unless the enemy has like 2000 anti-air or something. Oh, and I almost forgot the comments that I've already responded to. This guy is saying the tool doesn't work. Okay, in another video, he left a comment that just said it doesn't work, so I thought he was talking about his ED or something. First of all, I don't want to take credit for it. It wasn't me who made the tool, but Nico. Second of all, I think there's a geek filter on the site. If it detects that you're a geek, it just stops working. As you can see, I can move the ships just fine. Okay, it seems like that's everything. You can continue leaving comments, and after a while, when there are enough new ones, I'll respond again. Thanks for all the comments, and see you in the next one.